that it is Transfiguration Sunday, and that's what the scripture is all about. We read it in Mark chapter 9, verses 2 through 9. Hear now the word of the Lord. 6 days later, Jesus took with him Peter and James and John and led them up a high mountain apart by themselves. And he was transfigured before them, and his clothes became dazzling bright, such as no one on earth could brighten them. And there appeared to them Elijah with Moses, who were talking with Jesus. Then Peter said to Jesus, "Rabbi, it is good for us to be here. Let us set up 3 tents, one for you, one for Moses, and one for Elijah." He did not know what to say other than that, for they were terrified. Then a cloud overshadowed them, and from the cloud there came a voice, "This is my son, the beloved. Listen to him." Suddenly, when they looked around, they saw no one with them anymore, but only Jesus. As they were coming down the mountain, he ordered them to tell no one about what they had seen until after the Son of Man had risen from the dead. The word of the Lord.
Thanks be to God.
Good morning again.
Good morning.
It is such a pleasure to be with you this morning. Still, to be honest, part of me would like to be listening to some other clergy's sermon on this morning's text. I don't know. Today is Transfiguration Sunday. The passage read is called the Transfiguration. Now that's a 50-cent word if I've ever heard one. I mean, how often does any one of you or me use transfiguration in everyday conversation? It just doesn't happen. I have a colleague who is going to use glitter in his sermon, and I'm dying to know what he's doing with it. But, glitter is awful on the rug. He's spent forever getting it off the rug. But, he's quite creative, so I'll find out how well it went. But the words I spoke after reading our scripture, may God grant us understanding, has been my mantra this week. As rich as the imagery is, the passage raises questions, which in turn cause confusion. Let us begin with prayer. God of wisdom, God of grace, grant us open minds, hearts, and spirits as we seek the light in your word. Amen. A common first book for children is the alphabet book. The book begins with an upper and lower case A, accompanied with a picture of something beginning with the letter A. For example, A is for apple, B is for ball, C is for cat, and so on. T in the children's book stands for turkey, not transfiguration. So, I confess, I've got new bifocals and they're driving me crazy. Hang on. I confess to being a bit of a word nut. So I grabbed my trusty thesaurus and looked up for words with like meaning. The list is good and even has a few words that we might actually use. Transfiguration is synonymous with transformation, change, conversion, makeover. I mean, I could use probably any one of those and have more understanding than transfiguration. Transformation. Now there's a word that we can wrap our minds around. Our scripture says Jesus transfigured. His clothes changed whiter than possible. Jesus is talking with Moses and Elijah. Peter, James, and John are terrified. Then everything goes back to the way it was when they first went up the mountain. Maybe this is where my colleague plans to scatter glitter, I'm not sure. Jesus seems to be a transformer, changing before our eyes and before their eyes. Transformers, and some of you may remember these, some of you are as old as I am. Transformers were a very popular toy in the 80s. My children had them. Then in 2009, the Transformer movies series began. There's been 7 so far, with an officially confirmed one for 2024. The Transformer movies have a talking, flying superhero who transforms out of an inanimate object. There are amazing special effects and non-stop action in all of these films, which all provide really good entertainment. Perhaps, though, the most intriguing thing about Transformers is the transforming itself. There's magic and allure to the idea of something so basic and familiar becoming so mysterious and awesome. It makes us see the world around us, just for a second, as filled with new and exciting potential. What if a car wasn't just a car? Or a desk, just a desk? A toaster, just a toaster. I suggest we draw a line between the Transformers and the Transfiguration of Jesus. The tagline for the toys and the movies, subsequent movies, is "More than meets the eye." More than meets the eye. Is this not true of Jesus? I mean, the Transfiguration is the moment that the disciples get a glimpse of who Jesus really is, when they saw for certain that he was more than just a man. Jesus stands before, they've been traveling together and they didn't get it before this. Jesus stands before his disciples on the top of Mount Hermon, and before their eyes, he transforms. He changes from a rabbi with a keen connection to God into a God-man, God in flesh, who is greater than Moses and Elijah put together. The glimpse of who Jesus really is leaves the disciples stunned. The world suddenly has new and exciting potential. It seems to make sense for us of the 21st century to annually circle back to Christmas and Easter scriptures. But if you're like me, you may be asking, why circle back to this passage of Transfiguration? As 21st century Christians, are we not clear that Jesus is God's Son? Have we not accepted that he is more than human, but also divine? It is what we say when joining the church, and often it is said at the communion table. In many traditions, it is referred to as the Good Confession. Dr. Jaroslav Pelikan of Yale University, in Jesus Through the Centuries, speaks of how Jesus is seen in the history of Western culture. Each age has made Jesus relevant to its own needs. Jesus has furnished each new age with answers to fundamental questions as such fundamental as every generation has had to address new social problems. Take note of the social problems are new, that tested the more fundamental questions of human existence. The world had the world had to take note of Jesus as a rabbi, as the cosmic Christ, the ruler of the world, the King of Kings, we sing that one, the Prince of Peace, the Son of Man, the true image of man, the great liberator. In many other ways, Jesus furnished the answers and the images that affected society in positive ways. For this reason, Dr. Pelikan says Jesus does not belong to the churches and the theologians, not alone, but Jesus belongs to the world. However, like a child of the 80s, pulling and twisting a tiny figure to become something exciting if we manipulate it in just the right way, we are all guilty of trying to transform Jesus into what we want him to be. T-shirts read, "Fueled by Jesus," and coffee. Sundays are for Jesus and football. Glad you're all here. Jesus is my homeboy. You know, I can't imagine saying that, but Jesus as the divine affirmer, never confronting or challenging us, and I know that's wrong. But they're only there to say, with his Jesus is my homeboy, that I've got your back. Some folks have even transformed Jesus into a political card to be conveniently laid out as a means of winning arguments and shutting down debate on social issues. There is the Jesus who is the genie for the faithful. If you pray enough, believe enough, and just plain try hard enough, Jesus will grant your wish for a spiritual breakthrough. Or perhaps you're a recently returned home college freshman, learned in Philosophy 101 that Jesus is a simple, first-century guru, nothing more. Dr. Pelikan's theory has me thinking about what transformed images I hold of Jesus. I know I have more than one. Actually, there are a number to be trotted out when I need them. Perhaps you have some too. There's one good reason to return to this passage. We spend a great deal of time and energy as people trying to transform Jesus. We try to morph and manipulate Jesus into something he is not, surrounding something that fits our agenda. But the truth is, Jesus is not who we have made him out to be. Not even close. Jesus is greater than we assumed, holier than we give him credit for, and better than we have imagined. The Transfiguration breaks our self-serving ideas of Jesus and brings us back to the jaw-dropping, breathtaking truth of Jesus. We need the Transfiguration. We come back to this story because we may well have a false picture of Jesus. We lay our assumptions, our own agendas, and our designs upon Jesus. We sit with him, knowing that there is more than meets the eye, and yet try to turn him into something that fits our needs. Transfiguration Sunday exists to remind us of who Jesus really is and who we need to be to follow him. Jesus is adequate for all our needs, and Jesus transcends culture in such a way that he is able to belong to each age and to address the issues of all time. Jesus is not a card to be played in arguments. Jesus is not a puppet beholden to our commands or demands. Jesus is God's beloved Son. We must listen. Listen and let him move over us. Transfiguration, a 50-cent church word for sure. But transformation expands our vision of this Sunday. Jesus reveals to Peter, James, and John, and us, a richer, broader image. The broader image is timeless. Jesus meeting needs as they arise with each age. We have been looking at the Transfiguration text's message for us as individual Christians. But the text speaks even more excitingly for First Christian Church of Bremerton. The First Christian Church of Bremerton is in a challenging and changing place. Challenging and changing as you are working with your interim Pastor Coleman to discern your way forward, the future for you as a church. You are poised for transformation. This is a time of intentional seeking out who you are and how Jesus will lead. The truth-telling of Jesus is matched by truth-telling from us. Looking at who we are and what we are doing in the light of Jesus' call to serve. I'm reminded of a story that concerns a new graduate from seminary who went out to his first congregation, a long-standing old country church. As he was conducting his first worship, he noticed right away that everyone sat on one side of the church. That seemed odd. When it came time to sing the hymn following the sermon, the new pastor was amazed to see the entire congregation stand and move to the other side of the church, walk to the other side, and sit down and sing there. Weird. No one explained it to him. The same thing happened week after week after week. Finally, the pastor pieced it together. Many years earlier, the church was heated by a wood stove over on one side of the building. The building was cold during the winter. When people first got to church, everyone sat on one side close to the wood stove. As the service would go on, the wood stove would get very warm, too warm for comfort, and so the congregation developed practice of getting up, moving to the other side of the church after the sermon. Even though the church building had been remodeled several times and the wood stove had long since been replaced, the congregation still kept its practice of changing sides during the worship. Most of the members didn't even know why. It was just something that they did every Sunday. We chuckled. It is a true story, but we chuckle at the story. It is a reminder that we need to look openly and regularly at who we are and how we answer Christ's lead to serve. The blessing is mine to be able to be with you this morning. To be with you to listen for God's words or guidance in the Transfiguration passage. One of the things that I love about being faithful is the constancy. God is always God, with the big picture. And the call to follow Jesus Christ is consistent, constant, and transforming. One of the things I don't love about being faithful is the constancy. God's always God, with a big picture and a call to follow Jesus Christ, and that is a consistent, constant, and transforming call. Transfiguration, I don't think I'm going to use the word a lot in my everyday conversation, but it was interesting to look at it and say, okay, what is this saying to us for today? Transfiguration or transformation? With either, there is new and exciting potential. Let us pray.